Okay, I've just come across an article that's really pissed me off. And I just want to vent a little bit, really. I came across this article because I typed Afghanistan into Google. The reason being is that I like to follow what's going on in the world, and the conflict in Afghanistan seems to have been somewhat overshadowed this year by other wars that are going on in Iraq and Syria and so on. So I typed that in just to see what would come up. And this article came up, and the title is How Many More Can Cost Take? Holidaymakers' Misery as Boat People from Syria and Afghanistan seeking asylum set up migrant camp to turn popular Greek island into disgusting hellhole. This is from the Daily Mail, and I'll tell you what my thoughts are on the Daily Mail in a minute, but this is some of their sub-headlines. Migrants are descending on the Greek holiday island of Kos. Some 1,200 refugees have arrived in the last few days. Penniless refugees have set up camp sleeping in rubbish-strewn cardboard boxes, the harbour side. They've taken over a derelict hotel with makeshift beds, no running water, and are washing with a hose on the street. Summer break a nightmare for British holidaymakers who won't be coming back if it's refugee camp next year. Holiday Island Kos is particularly popular with families taking their kids away on package deals for half term. By Hannah Roberts in Kos for Mail Online. And it has a few pictures. Now, that article reminds me a little bit of a scene in the film Hotel Rwanda. In that film, it shows Western tourists in Rwanda at the time of the genocide evacuating, and there's one man who sort of feels, well, actually, he's a journalist, and he feels embarrassed when one of the hotel workers kind of gives him an umbrella when it's raining. He's embarrassed because obviously he's looking at the bigger context of thinking this is a nightmare situation developing around me. I couldn't care less if I get a little bit wet from the rain. You know, the idea that he's a privileged Westerner and a little bit of discomfort, he could put up with a little bit of discomfort compared to what other people have to put up with. So it reminds me a bit of this in a way. Um, or I should say, this reminds me of that in a way. But what angers me about this article is the way it is written is clearly intended to make you feel sympathy with the holidaymakers, and it is utterly dehumanizing the refugees. And I think it's disgusting. Um, and that they're subtle about it. They're not coming out with Katie Hopkins type language. If you know who Katie Hopkins is, you'll know who I'm referring to. But I mean, you'll know what I'm referring to. But this really, really angers me because it's clearly written in a certain way to stir up resentment against the refugees, and it exemplifies everything I hate about the tabloid press. And the Daily Mail has a long history of doing things like this. Um, and it's despicable, quite frankly. Now look, I know if people are on holiday, they want to relax, they want to have a good time, and it may well be that this situation has made them uncomfortable or made their itinerary slightly off um, off its plan. But I haven't heard of any reports of people losing their own rooms to refugees or anything like that. So, frankly, these people can put up with a little bit of discomfort, and I believe that will be minimal discomfort compared to the absolute hell that the refugees are going through. I mean, my God, have some goddamn context. Sorry for the swearing, but I'm pretty angry about this, and it just infuriates me when some of my fellow Britons cannot see the bigger picture. Now, I'm not going to come out and slander all the holidaymakers because maybe they're not all saying this. This could well be the Daily Mail kind of putting words into their mouth. But shame on the Daily Mail. Shame on the Daily Mail. Once again, shame on the Daily Mail. It's despicable what they're actually doing, and it shows how inconsistent they are. Because in another article, they're talking about the plight of civilians in northern Iraq fleeing ISIS. So on one hand, they're pretending they give a damn. On the other hand, they blatantly don't, because all they care about is some privileged Western people had their holiday um, overshadowed by the fact that some people, a large number of people actually, are in a miserable situation. I just cannot. I've no patience for people who can dehumanize refugees in this way. Now, look, I I have views on immigration. I don't believe in an open door policy. I don't believe that we just let anyone in and be kind of a soft touch. I'm not like that. But I do believe that we should be humane. And when I see the gutter press and rags like the Daily Mail dehumanize migrants the way they're doing in this article, I just feel enraged, quite honestly. I feel very angry because this is the sort of shit that fuels the far right, and it fuels racism. But it just, I mean, the photos really speak volumes. It's showing people who have nothing and some middle-aged British women walking by with leather purses. And I'm not going to slander these women. I don't know them, but I'm attacking the Daily Mail here. Okay. Um, the point here is there is absolutely zero comparison between mild inconvenience on the part of the tourists. And this isn't even affecting, their holiday in terms of visiting historical sites or in terms of going to the beach or anything like that. It's solely talking about the fact that abandoned hotels that are not being used for tourists are being used by the refugees. So I don't see how that, if it makes them feel guilty, that would be a human response. And I can understand it would be, it would definitely make you think about it. If you're on holiday, I can understand it takes away the fun factor if you're seeing refugees, but that's not anybody's fault. It's not the fault of the refugees. So for a despicable, horrible little rag like the Daily Mail to come out with this, to me that exemplifies um, the very low standards of its journalism. Now, I'm not going to say that I always have these feelings about Daily Mail articles. I'm not going to say all their articles are like this. But the fact that they can get away with any article like this, I believe, is bad. So, for example, the Daily Mail may have um, some reports on social issues that could be praised, and they'll say things that are kind of like stating the obvious. If, say, for example, an elderly lady's been beaten up by a gang, they would come in and condemn it. Well, so would anyone. So, a lot of the stuff the Daily Mail reports is kind of like common sense things that most people would who have values would see as wrong anyway. Um, but what irritates me about this rag is they like to play judge, jury, and executioner. And okay, I'm getting on to other issues here, but the arrogance of the Daily Mail is astounding. The incredible arrogance that this paper has. Now, in one or two of my videos, I've quoted Daily Mail articles in order to talk about a point. So, from that point of view, I'm not going to say that every single article is bad. Okay, occasionally they report things that frankly some of the quality papers wouldn't necessarily talk about. So I guess I have to give them the props for that. But it's reports like this I think are despicable, and I think are, I believe you can have the debate about immigration without dehumanizing immigrants, since that's what they're doing with this article. Shame on them. I'll put a link to this below, and that you make your own judgment. But I would hope you would see that where I'm coming from with this, because the article is racist as far as I'm concerned, because it is entirely obsessed by the mild discomfort caused to Western holidaymakers or British holidaymakers. It doesn't give a damn about the humanitarian situation these refugees are going through. Does the Daily Mail really think that these people, um, they made this choice easily to flee their homeland from civil war? Do they really think that was an easy choice? I mean, I really think the Mail needs to be called to task on this, and so does this reporter. And I'm going to name her because I think journalists should be accountable. Um, Hannah Roberts. Does she really think that this sort of report has any sort of moral credibility? The entire report is talking about like the discomfort of the British holidaymakers. Now, again, I understand that if you paid money, you want to go on holiday and relax. Okay, I get that. But there is no comparison between the minor discomfort that they're going through and the absolute hell that the refugees are going through. So it is a racist article because it is trying to divide people in that sort of way and saying that the discomfort of one group of people is more important than the nightmare that another group of people are going through. So it's a horrible article, and to me it exemplifies everything that is ugly about the Daily Mail. I'll put a link below this video.